Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
We got 12 bottles of water, 56 beers, 2 vodkas, 4 whiskey, 6 bottles of wine, tequila, Nutella, cheese, steaks, a Milky Way, a baseball bat, and the video camera from the movie 27 Hours.
127 hours.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. Again on a Monday, surprising. Monday the 9th of February for anyone listening back to us sometime after that. Anyone listening to us live, hello and welcome. Join us in chat in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Stuart, who can speak properly this week without a cough, and then I'm probably going to jinx myself and go on a cough really badly.
Yeah, you're going to catch something at the weekend in the cinema when you're seeing a particular film.
No, before we actually go into anything, have you seen the news story regarding that particular film and what a lot of cinemas are actually doing?
Yes, I have. I presume you're going over that in the news.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, we'll have to mention it then, in particular when we get to the news. But that'll be sort of the first thing up amongst everything else we're doing in this show, including reviews of these new films.
It's not a biopic about Martin Luther King. Martha might be his grandmother, but it centres around a main point in Martin Luther King's life in Selma, and then you've got Silent Kid's claymation from the Mines of Aardman with Shaun the Sheep, the movie, the latest film from the Wachowskis with Jupiter Ascending, and the most controversial film of last year, The Interview.
Yep, and then in DVDs and Blu Ray land, we're covering these films quite a lot this week.
Yeah, we've got The Maze Runner, Dracula Untold. I finally get to tell you what I think of Enemy. It's been a while. Rewrite.
That's if I don't mute you.
Yeah, I'll kill you if you do. The Rewrite, Hector and the Search for Happiness, What If, Knights of Badassdom, another movie that I saw quite a while ago, and I finally get to tell you my thoughts. And The Best of Me. Not The Best of Me, the film called The Best of Me.
Yeah, and I'm the one doing the review of that, so you get to see what I thought of that when we get to the end of the show. But before that, we'll go through, as I said, a look of all of those. Then also, between those, we'll have the top 10s, as we usually do. But first off, we'll go into some movie news, and I'll start off with, the only piece I've got is about, obviously, that one of the big things in this week has been the BAFTAs, which happened last night. And so, if you're not aware of the BAFTAs, it's kind of like the British precursor to the Oscars, and generally you can tell from this a lot of the time what's maybe going to happen with films in the Oscars, because the big sort of talk of the night was you had several films up for a lot of things, but the one that stood out really and got best film was Boyhood, which I know you're really happy about.
Yep.
You also have, because it also received Best Supporting Actress Best Supporting Actress for Patricia Arquette, who played
Which
that.
I don't get that.
Yeah, I'm not very. I think there were better options.
No, I just don't get why she was classed as the supporting actress in the film when it was Laura Lee Linklater. She was the supporting actress behind Patricia Arquette.
Okay, I can kind of see that, but
no, because I think if you look,
good, but
yeah, I know, but I think if you look at leading actress, the category of leading actress, I think there is one person there which could have easily been replaced with Patricia Arquette. So
talking of Best Actress, I mean, Best Actress was won by Julianne Moore for Still Alice, which hasn't actually been released in the UK yet. It doesn't come out until the end of February. Yeah. So we'll be reviewing that in the next couple of weeks. But Best Actor, which is the one that everyone kind of did call this, was Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything, the Stephen Hawking biopic. Well, not sort of biopic, but the Stephen Hawking movie, which is a fantastic performance, and everyone was saying this. I'm really, really pleased, though. Best Supporting Actor went to J.K. Simmons for Whiplash. Now, did I or did I not call that?
Yeah, and it was sort of like smart in a way, because the fact that they looked at leading actor and they knew that it was between Eddie Redmayne and Benedict Cumberbatch. And so if they put J.K. Simmons and that lot there, they knew that he wouldn't have won. However, he had a much stronger chance of winning supporting actor rather than best actor. So I think it was an interesting ploy in the way so it would get J.K. Simmons an award. I might not play out like that, but I think that might be the way that it went.
I actually think it is a supporting role because he's not the main character. Miles Teller is the main character of the film. So
yeah, but Miles Teller was.
I'm not saying that. I'm not expecting Miles Teller to be nominated because his performance was good, but it wasn't as good as the likes of Eddie Redmayne and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Miles Teller was never going to get nominated, unfortunately. But it was interesting to actually because you could sort of like put them on an even par because if you look at the film. Even though the film is about Miles Teller's journey, but he is taught by J.K. Simmons' character, and he's still sort of like up there as the head act of the film as well. So it was an interesting ploy to put him down as supporting actor, and I think it worked out really well.
The other big one of the night, which is the outstanding British film of the year, went to The Theory of Everything, which I'm kind of a little bit disappointed with because I don't necessarily agree that overall, definitely the performance, Eddie Redmayne did a great job, better than Benedict Cumberbatch, I think. But even though Benedict Cumberbatch did a great job, but I think personally, I think for me that Imitation Game is a slightly stronger film to me than Theory of Everything. Theory of Everything is very dependent on performance. I think that the Imitation Game is more deserving of a outstanding British Film of the Year award.
Yeah, what I love also is the fact that in a few of the other smaller categories, well, not smaller categories, but in a few of the other categories, outstanding debut by British writer, director, producer, Pride. I'm so happy that Pride won an award because it definitely deserved some kind of mention somewhere. So it is such an important film, but it is such a really good film. It's a movie that you didn't expect to be as good as it is, and it's strong from most facets of the film. So I'm glad it got that. The other one that made me ecstatic was Best Animated Film. Went to the Lego
Movie. Yep.
Well done. They could have included How to Train Your Dragon 2 in that list there, but I'm happy that
the Movie won it.
Yeah, I'm so happy that the Lego Movie won it, considering it's been snubbed by the Oscars.
Yeah. Other ones, just to go through quickly, ones I've got noted down here. Best Original Screenplay went to the Grand Budapest Hotel, which also won quite a few other awards, sort of the smaller awards, not the big ones, but to say they're small, it won. I think it was Best Costume and things like that. But it also won production design, and it won music as well, Best Music for a film, which is to Alexander Desplat, and that was one of my 5 sort of choices of last year when we did the end of the year show. So I mean, I agree with that. I don't necessarily know that was the best one, but I definitely agree that it's an up there great score. There's Best Adapted Screenplay, because original screenplay is one that's written from scratch. Adapted screenplay based on a book or something else like that was The Theory of Everything. Best Cinematography went to Birdman, which I think is kind of a nice thing for I think maybe a bit of a throw to it, but I think it's nice that they gave it to that because it is a beautifully filmed film. And I'm really glad as well Best Editing went to Whiplash because it has got some fantastically edited sequences. The music sequences in that film are like nothing else you've ever seen.
Yeah, and one of the only other ones to mention, because you've got the few other little ones like Best British Short and Best British Short Animation, Best Visual Effects, which went to Interstellar. I think I would have given that to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes personally, because
it's a kind of a toss up between them. I think the whole thing of Interstellar was given it because of the fact that it had a lot more in it, whereas Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think that because it's mostly sort of one effect of the ape effect, which I think it's possibly because of that it got it lost out to it.
No, I just think it's just like cop out because the fact that Interstellar is really nice to look at on the screen, lots of crash bang wallop kind of special effects, whereas Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was more grounded, more rooted, more human, and I think it deserved it more so on that point of view, just to also acknowledge what Andy Serkis has done, It would have been nice for it to actually win that. But the other one to point out is the EE Rising Star Award, which went to Jack O'Connell. That was a really difficult one to choose from, because each one of them who was in that one, apart from Margot Robbie, who was in I forgot the name of the film now. It's in the I'll remember. It is The Wolf of Wall Street. She played the wife of Leonardo DiCaprio's character in The Wolf of Wall Street. I think Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Jack O'Connell, Miles Teller, Shailene Woodley, that is a difficult one to choose from, and Jack O'Connell won it because of the three films, the big films that he was in last year.
Yeah, the fact of having done Starred Up, done Unbroken, and
71.
But he's kind of got he's got his name out there, isn't he, more from it? So I think that's kind of played to his effort, to his benefit.
What I find,
but I mean, it is not to say that it's not earned, because he is great in all three of them. I mean, Starred Up, he basically makes the film, and Unbroken is a film that should not have been anywhere near as good as it was, given the amount of people involved in it that were not sort of Anthony Jolie being a first-time director, and Jack O'Connell being not. I mean, he's not been anything kind of that big. And then 71 as well, he again think it's sort of him carrying the film, so he's definitely got that quality. He's definitely able to sort of command the screen.
No, well, what I found interesting was the fact that when it goes over the some of the films that some of the actors and actresses have been in, there's Gugu Mbatha-Raw has been in quite a few films that I completely didn't recognise her in, because sort of I would say that the first film I saw her in was Belle, but that's not the case when you go back and look at over the other films. Like, for example, she's in Jupiter Ascending. Yeah,
she's got a tiny role in that, which I kind of recognised her but didn't. I was kind of, is that her? I don't know. And
she was in Odd Thomas, and when I watched over the BAFTA awards last night, and when they put her name down as being in Odd Thomas, I went, that's Gugu Mbatha-Raw, because I really, really loved Odd Thomas. I thought it was a very good little film. She was in Larry Crown. So it was just interesting that some of the films that pop up from these supposedly EE Rising Star actors and actresses, and they've been in more films that you might have actually guessed them being in.
Yeah.
I just find that really interesting. I've only got two other little bits of news, because obviously it was taken over by the BAFTAs. But The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed that Osamu Tezuka's iconic Astro Boy is to be turned into a live-action film. Very little is known on the project, apart from Tezuka's productions are working on the project with Animal Logic Entertainment. That's it.
Yeah, there's not much to me. I don't know the director. What's the director? Was it from? You know, probably.
Osamu Tezuka's.
Yeah, I can't think of the name. I can't think where it's from. I slapped myself in the head for a second. What?
He created Astro Boy. So he's actually the father of Astro Boy. Astro Boy is that robot boy who's got a dog as well, a robotic dog. And I think it's a very iconic cartoon in Japan. It was made into a few video games, TV series as well. They were always attempting to try and make it into a film, but considering that it is a boy robot, it sounds very much like AI.
No, so, I recognise the name, but I don't actually know it.
Yeah, I think you will as soon as you actually see a picture of Astro Boy. You'll go, oh, that's who that is. Yeah. The only other news I've got is, according to Deadline, Mark Webb, the director of The Amazing Spider-Man, will be helming the pilot of the TV version of Limitless, after the director of the film, Neil Berger, had to step down due to scheduling conflicts. The TV series will see the character of Brian Sinclair, who helps out the FBI solve murders using the mysterious drug NZT. Bradley Cooper, however, will not reprise his role.
Yeah, but it's kind of a given that Bradley Cooper wasn't going to go back to television. Although he did start out there. I mean, his early roles were in things like Alias. He was in that, which was with J.J. Abrams. Funny enough, started in television, now doing films. But, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to this, but I don't know that I like the idea of it now being turned into a cop series thing. You know? I don't know if I like that, because that's not what the film was about. The film was a drama about the whole thing of the character using the drug, and I'd like to see more of it being about the character, and maybe he ends up helping them and helping this, but not being. I don't want it to become a one of these formulaic, cop show things that they have, where it just becomes a bit stale very quickly.
Would you have gone down the route of more like a Breaking Bad kind of thing, or something more like that? Like you said, not a procedural cop drama, because by the sounds of it, that sounds like the route that it's going down, the procedural cop thing. Do you think it would have been much better?
They could have made that kind of part of it as well. I mean, it's easy enough if they're doing it like over at least a season, 1 year of TV, to see whether or not it does well and gets brought back for other ones. But they could quite easily do a mix of both, have it be a thing about obviously the drug, because it involves him taking this drug which is illegal and has to be made. So obviously for him to continue doing this, he would have to find some way to get a new supply and make it and everything, and that would be part of it. And have it be helping the police and everything as well, part of it, but not having be a policeman, having or go into it and end up being essentially like what the Sherlock shows have become, where they just become kind of an extension of the police. I'd like to see them, he turns up and gets involved in something, and the police maybe don't even want him there, that kind of thing, and he ends up doing it, and they end up going, okay, you've solved it, here it is, and that kind of thing, but not, oh yeah, what are we going to do? We're stuck, we'll call this guy.
Very much sort of in a way like what they did with a couple of the characters in... I should actually really think of the name of TV programs and stuff like that before I actually go around with points.
It reminds me of a great show there was, which only lasted 1 year, and was left off with a cliffhanger, damn it. But it was a great show which starred Dominic Purcell, of all people, who's not been great in a lot of films that he's been in. But it was a series called John Doe, about a guy with mysterious powers, didn't know where he came from, knew everything, but ended up helping the police. But he ended up helping them while he was always doing his own thing, and it was that made it interesting. So I want it to be something like that. I don't want it to be just wake up, there's a murder, get involved in it. It's he's doing his own thing, and maybe there's a murder, or he's I'd like to see it be a bit more flexible.
The TV program I was trying to think of, and I should shoot myself for not actually being really able to remember it, is Fringe. It's not like the Walter character in Fringe.
How could you forget Fringe?
I know, it would just be like if I forgot Battlestar Galactica. I would hate myself if I got... Fringe and Battlestar... Well, Fringe was the last TV series that I watched from beginning to end. So it was that long ago that I've actually stuck by a TV series. I can't technically call any of the other ones that I do sort of try and watch from beginning to end, because some of them are still ongoing. But Fringe was the last one that I watched from beginning to end.
Okay, anyway, movies we hear about, not TV. That's your last piece of news, isn't it?
Well, you're not going to start off really well when you get into the box office top 10 then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, because the first one we're going to skip over, basically, which is at number 10, is Les Contes de Hoffmann, which is an opera. So we're going to skip over that and just go straight to number 9, which is Inherent Vice, which I know you haven't seen. Nope. So I'm just going to say, Paul Thomas Anderson's latest, and for me, not his most disliked film, but his most disconnected film. It's I think a film that's all over the place. Whether or not it's intentional or not is questionable. You'd have to see that for yourself to decide. But I think it's got a good performance in it, but it's just, I think, far too long and a bit of a mess, and really needs to be cut down from the running time of 2.5 hours. Number 8 is Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
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 No, it's Machina, because it is shortened from the Deus Ex Machina. So it is Machina. But Ex Machina is the directorial debut of Alex Garland. He's a writer. He's written multiple films specifically for Danny Boyle. He did 28 Days Later. He did Sunshine as well. And so he's more akin to these kind of science fiction films. And when it comes to directorial debuts, it's a very, very strong one. And that's thanks to the 3 performances by Oscar Isaac, Domhnall Gleeson and Alicia Vikander. So it was all down to that triangle that they provide in the film, and it's very well handled from each one of them. Each one of them brings their own personality, but changes during the film, even though one of them, which is the robot of Ava, who's played by Alicia Vikander, she is a robot, yet she starts to fully get emotions when she gets more attracted to Domhnall Gleeson's character. And so it's interesting to see the evolution of how robotics and androids and things like that have managed to come along in film itself. And it's spooky for what the future's going to be like, and I think he handles it really well. It's just the last 20 minutes which needed to be cut.
Number 7, surprisingly still hanging around as long as it has been and doing well. Paddington.
Sequel has been greenlit. Well, obviously you know it was going to happen, but so far it's taken more than $200 million worldwide, which is brilliant for a film that it was originally dropped by the original studio that had it, and then picked up again by a smaller studio, which took a risk. It was the biggest risk they've ever taken, and it's paid off for them, and well done.
Number 6 is Into the Woods.
It's got a decent enough 2/3. The last third, it just falls apart badly because it should have ended. It should have just been an hour film rather than an hour and 45-minute film.
And that means at number 5, and your watch is bleeping again.
That now? And that's the name of the number 5 film?
Yeah, and your watch is bleeping again, yeah, because it'll be a better title than Taken 3.
Yeah, I hope it's a series that's had its time. I hope it's a series that's finished now, but I doubt it. Because Liam Neeson is obviously, if he gets asked, will you do a Taken 4, he'll come back because it's easy work.
Taken for a ride.
Taken for all our money.
Yeah, it seems to be the old ones are the ones that are hard to do, but Taken 2, the cleaners, Taken for a ride. Yeah, be quite a good one for that, I think. Let's see, number 4 is The Theory of Everything.
It's award-winning, The Theory of Everything. It deserves it, because acting-wise, it's brilliant. It was nice to also see Stephen Hawking at the BAFTAs. Come on stage, actually, to present an award and interrupt the person who was beside him when they were going, and the winner is. Yeah, and the winner is, he interrupted her.
I haven't seen it. I was kind of like, I wanted to see that. I wanted to have a look at that. I'll have to look. It'll be on YouTube somewhere. Yeah,
I just found that funny that he interrupted her.
Number 3 is American Sniper.
The sniper part of the film is what works. The American side of the film, for me, is what harms the film, because I think it's a bit weak. The director, he definitely knows Clint Eastwood. He definitely knows how to direct very tense scenes and how to set them up properly. And that's what the sniper element of it is. It's just about Chris Kiley's character and the 4 tours that he did of Iraq, and him going up against sort of like his counterpart on the Iraqi side, but also having to make these really tough decisions on who he can kill and who should be killed. But then coming back to America and with his family, I think that's when the film itself just lost it a little bit and just didn't know how to construct itself better.
I think as well that it does suffer from being Clint Eastwood being a very minimalist director and doing a very, very minimal work with some things that I think he could have done a bit more with. In the case of this, I mean, you see it in other films, but in this more so, I think. New entry at number 2 for Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Yeah, a lot of people sort of like an uproar with the ending of the film. It's just a bit of toilet humour. I sort of like, it definitely didn't need to be there, because the way Taron Egerton's character was actually Eggsy, who was progressing through the film, he was becoming much more like less the lads kind of person and more polite and more protective in the weir, and so regressing him down to doing a stupid little childish joke like that was a bit silly. But I found it silly rather than being very sexist. It's just the problem with the film, I think it's got a very saggy middle section. And also, it's not the end part, which is the sexist part. It just does not know how to write. The writers, which is Jane Goldman and I can't remember who wrote it alongside.
Was it the director? Matthew Vaughn? No, not Matthew Vaughn.
I'm not sure if Matthew Vaughn actually wrote it alongside Jane Goldman. No, I know it was Jane Goldman and somebody else, but it's just the way the female characters were overly written in the film itself. They weren't very strong at all. There are some really good scenes in the movie, and the violence is quite over the top, specifically the church scene. But that's sort of alleviated slightly with another scene where it could have been overly violent, but it's nicely toned down and it's done with a bit of style. And Samuel L. Jackson, that was a pastiche beyond the pastiche.
I quite liked his performance. I didn't think that the rear end humour at the end of the film was that bad, because of the fact that the film is kind of making a spoof on the whole classic Bond films. I mean, you won't get it so much because you don't like the Bond films, but anyone who knows the Bond films will know that all the old films ended with some kind of a sexual reference humour. Yeah, something to do with that. You know, there was always a kind of thing like that. And so I didn't think it was in particularly bad. I thought it was a good way to kind of comment on that by showing it, you know, a similar kind of thing present day and all. So I don't have a problem.
But the only way I see it is the difference between Kingsman and the Bond films is in Kingsman the character of Eggsy is growing up during the film itself. In the Bond films, Bond isn't doing that. So he can sort of like get away with it because that's his trait throughout the entirety of the series. He's very much a womanizer. During Kingsman, you don't see that from Eggsy's character that much, only near to the start of the film. During the film itself, he's getting trained up to be much more like a spy, to be more like a gentleman kind of character, rather than the way he turned out with that last scene. That's my problem with it, rather than what it actually turned out to be, and a lot of people annoyed with.
Or anyone complaining about the whole film, I mean, you want to see one that's made for like a PG-12 audience, then watch Stormbreaker or whatever it's called, which was just absolutely terrible. You can just see how bad it is if you do something like that and don't actually have any sort of the humour and that kind of thing. So, so it means the other new entry in the top 10, right at the number 1 spot, is Big Hero 6.
But it didn't take us very much more than Kingsman, as a matter of fact. It's only less than around about £50,000, which, considering, because I've got the sheet beside me with the screen average as well. And this is where I can cheat because I don't include that on the listing on the site anymore at all. But yet with me, I do have it beside me. Big Hero 6 was shown in 501 screens. Kingsman was shown in 533. So it had slightly a bigger screen showing.
Yeah, but the thing is that Big Hero 6 has had how many screenings before its release? So people would have seen...
Big Hero 6 has also been shown in 3D, whereas Kingsman isn't. But Big Hero 6 it's a beautiful animated film to look at, taking San Francisco and Tokyo, making it San Francisco, mixing it together. And also Baymax is brilliant. I love the character of Baymax, specifically the scene where he has lost power and he just sound drunk. And then he just goes up to the bedroom of the lead character and strokes the cat and goes, "Hairy baby." That just has me in stitches every single time I see that scene. It's just, I felt like it suffered from the Marvel effect. Yeah, it's by Disney. It's in the house where Marvel is actually part of. But it suffered from the Marvel effect because the fact that they thought that the best way to do the ending would be to make it a superhero film. And I just didn't want them to go down that route at all. It's been done before. And they're trying to do something slightly different with the Disney animated films. Frozen, it was a hark back to the old age of the princess movies. And it was nice to see that back on the screen again because we lost that kind of thing. Whereas with Wreck-It Ralph was all about video games. Video games is very rarely touched upon in films in general. Only when you see like a kid every now and again playing a video game or a video game sort of like inspired film. But video games in a proper way isn't touched, and that was sort of like a send-up of the video game area. This one, they could have went in a different direction, but they sort of looked at Marvel and thought, we might as well just make it a superhero bit and make it easier for ourselves. So I didn't like that element of it, but the rest of the film works for me.
I still haven't seen it yet, and I do want to see it. I just, at the moment...
I've seen it twice.
I haven't seen it once yet.
Surprisingly, I've seen it twice. And it's only February, and I've seen one movie this year twice. I wonder if it'll actually...
twice.
I wonder if it will beat Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy last year, surprisingly, I saw it 4 times. So that's a record for me.
Well. No, I saw it quite a lot of times. Anyway,
I know, but for me, come on, 4 times for one film.
Yeah. Moving on, though, into the first film we're covering this week, which is Selma. It is as you rightly said at the start, so not a biopic about Martin Luther King directly, but featuring heavily the character or the person of Martin Luther King in the true story of Selma, Alabama, which is the town where ultimately, this isn't spoiler really, but it's what the whole film is about. The whole thing of them, this march being organised so that people can walk through to the town of Selma, Alabama, where coloured people in the 1960s are being denied their right to vote. You have a scene sort of early on with a character played by Oprah Winfrey, who has gone through, filled out this form properly, and she's then chastised by the man who's white at the counter. He asks her these questions. He asks her about the sort of kind of like an American citizens test question, and then starts bullying her and asking her all these other questions about, you know, how many judges are there in the state and all this kind of thing, and eventually then denying her basically with a big rubber stamp on the form saying denied application for her to sign to actually be registered as a voter, as are many other people. As we're then introduced in the film to Martin Luther King, played by David, and I can never pronounce his right. Is it Oyelowo?
Yeah,
David.
You've got it pretty much right, David Oyelowo.
Yeah. I struggle with names. But David Oyelowo. Oh god, I just can't say it. It's like you say something, someone say this, and I just can't do it.
The way I actually do it is Oyelowo, because it sounds much more easier.
I'm just gonna point to you, so you're gonna have to learn to like my cues for like, and so it stars.
Well, you can do the David part because I think that's easy for you. I think you did.
It stars David
Oyelowo.
Yeah, playing Martin Luther King Jr. And
you're like Statler and Waldorf. It's getting scary now.
Yeah, he is then leading sort of this group of people that are trying to basically get to Selma, Alabama, and raise this issue of the awareness of this issue of that there is still racism going on and segregation going on, even though it is now illegal in America, and the whole thing of that taking place. He is sort of leading rallies in particular to try and arrange people and get this sorted out. Here's a clip.
The president doesn't want us to march today. The courts don't want us to march. But we must march. We must stand up. We must make a massive demonstration of our moral certainty. I'm so glad we're here together today. I thank you for standing up. For we shall be victorious in our quest. We shall cross the finish line hand in hand. For we shall overcome. All right.
So one of the things that not everyone is aware of, I didn't know it until the other day, I found out that one of the things that they had a problem with when they made the film is they weren't allowed to use the Martin Luther King speeches because they're actually under license to someone. Martin Luther King's estate owns
Steven Spielberg,
and they're now under license to Steven Spielberg, which is a bit odd.
Yeah, very.
And given the way he is about things, I mean, to do especially with historical things and to do with the Nazis and Jews and stuff, I'm surprised that he would not give them permission to use them in this. But the thing is, you don't have to have them in it, to be honest. It has scenes that work. For me, I think it's a very, very good film. It's a brilliant performance from David
Oyelowo.
Yep. Who has been, I think, snubbed a little and not being given at least a nomination for Best Actor, because he is fantastic in the film. I think that the problem is with the film is that it's a film that it doesn't know whether it wants to try and be a Martin Luther King biopic or it wants to be a thing telling the story of the events of Selma, Alabama. And I think that the problem is that it tries to do both, and it's one of these films that when you try and do both, you try and serve two masters, and you can't happily please both of them. That's what I'm finding with it. I have a problem with it. I thought it's very good. I thought it's well done. I just didn't think it was great. I thought it was good. The problem I have is that it reminded me of Hitchcock, which is a film which is about Alfred Hitchcock, but it's about making Psycho, and doesn't really feature much about anything before Psycho or after Psycho with Alfred Hitchcock. This has a kind of the same thing. It focuses too much on Selma. I would have liked to have seen. I would have gladly seen a longer film that was more about Martin Luther King and leading from his youth up to his untimely death, which is revealed, the details of it at the end of the film. He was only 39 when he was killed, so it's a case of you could have a film that would fit that and have it focused largely at one point on the elements of Selma, Alabama. But I found that it's very well done. It's brilliant done. It does show the graphic nature of how people were treating the beatings that went on. In particular, there's one scene that's quite sort of shocking of a scene of a mother, father, and their son who are at one of these moments they're getting beaten and they escape off to the side into a restaurant where they think they're safe and it turns out they're not. And it's a good film. I didn't think it was a great film, and maybe that's what's affected him not being given an Oscar nomination. But it's worth seeing, if for anything, for his performance.
Right, you don't know what I think about the film because I've only just not long finished seeing the film myself. But
I'm curious to see if you think the same or different to me.
This is going to be scary because I completely 100% agree with you. I had exactly the same problem with the film as you did. I felt like it wasn't sure what kind of movie it wanted to be, whether it was telling the story of the plight of the people of Selma, or whether it was telling the story of Martin Luther King's trying to get together people so he can get the vote for them. It wasn't sure what area, but also you've got the outerlining part of the film as well, which revolves around the violence, which revolves around the corruption between the people who run different parts of America, and how how it wasn't actually coherent together with the president, and how their decisions just seemed to be a bit fractured as well. So yeah. I thought the film had three strands, but it wasn't sure which one to follow.
You also got sorry.
No, go on.
I mean, you reminded me there of the thing of that all the way through the film, you're reminded that Martin Luther King is being monitored by the FBI, by these things that pop up, and then there's interviews, there's meetings between an actor playing J. Edgar Hoover and the president, and they're talking about it and all this kind of thing. So there's this thing going all the way through it as well, which then that kind of plays the other side of it. So that's when it actually walks away from Martin Luther King. Even though it's talking about Martin Luther King, it's no longer about Martin Luther King then. It's about the other people at the time that are against him, and the people that were trying to manipulate things, and the people that were working against him and stuff. And so that is where it kind of doesn't know where its focus wants to be.
Yeah, too many characters. I think that's the biggest problem with the film itself. That's not actually putting a damper on the film, because the film is brilliantly acted. David Oyelowo is fantastic in the role as Martin Luther King. He's British as well. Just like most of the lead actors in the film, they are British. So it's interesting that they decided to take British actors to do that, because if you listen to a few interviews with some black actors, they find it really difficult to get those kind of roles in the UK, because we've seen too many films to do with slavery that's from the American side. The last film that I remember watching that had something to do with slavery from the British side was Belle, was Gugu and Mbatha-Raw. In Belle, that was sort of like touched on the female side of slavery. It'll be interesting to see that standpoint of view from the male side of things, but about British slavery, because the same thing happened in the UK as it did happen in America, and we've seen that there's so many times now. We need for these prominent actors like David Oyelowo to sort of like take a role where it centres around a British side of it, looking at British slavery. But the film itself is still very well acted. It just has a problem with too many character strands, I thought.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Right, Shaun the Sheep. Shaun the Sheep, the movie. Who would have thought that a little tiny sheep that cropped up in Wallace and Gromit, the wrong trousers, if I remember correctly, would actually go on to spawn a TV series where the episodes lasted around about 10 minutes on CBBC, that's a children's channel in the UK, and then ultimately Aardman thinking it might be a good idea to give him his own movie. And you sort of get the skeptics out there, considering that it is based on an 8-10 minute episode programme. Will it actually be able to stretch to an 88-minute film, and also characters that don't speak? So it's practically a silent film for kids. And it's Aardman not going away from anything that they've done in the past. It's their stop-motion claymation animation that they do. And it does centre around Shaun. He lives on the farm with the rest of the sheep. He's got a really happy life. Originally a really happy life with the farmer. You see that in the opening 5-10 minutes of the film, where he's enjoying what he's doing. He's going through the same routine, which is starting to become a bit stagnant. And so he comes up with an idea of tricking the farmer into thinking that it's night time when it's in fact daytime, so they can have a day off and enjoy themselves Unfortunately, though, an incident happens where the farmer who's been locked inside their caravan ends up careering towards the city. He gets amnesia, he forgets who he is, so Shaun, along with his sheep pals, have to go into the city to try and find the farmer, but bad things start to happen. Now, we would play a clip of some of the characters speaking or whatever, but because this is a silent movie, the only kind of clips out there is of the music, but I think this clip here sort of like gives you the kind of feel of what the film is like.
Okay, what's set up for us first before we play it. What is happening here? What is going on in this scene?
You know, you've always got like evil characters in these kind of films. There has to be a bad guy to make the film have a flow, and so in this case, it's a person who captures animals, and so he's captured Shaun the sheep after sort of like mishaps in a cafe, in a restaurant where his sheep pals have dressed up as humans, and so he's captured Shaun the sheep and he's took him to prison.
Okay.
So that actually...
That's just because no, you could hear me obviously when we were doing that because we muted my
Yeah.
phone, but I was laughing all the way through that. I haven't seen the film. I was just laughing at the sounds and the ideas of that in my head.
Yeah, because it's rated U, but in that clip there, you've got Shaun being dragged down, sort of like Green Mile-esque kind of thing. That sort of like reminded of that. And then you've got the very stereotypical characters. You've got a bulldog who's got something tattooed on his knuckles, and then you've got a poodle who's working out with weights. And then you've heard the harmonica in that clip bit there. It's actually
made me burst out laughing.
It's a goldfish playing the harmonica. And there's also a turtle who's been there for years and years and years, putting little scratches on the walls. And then you've got the Hannibal Lecter character and the cat. And so it's just... There are loads of references during the entirety of the film, which plays out to both children, where they love Shaun the Sheep's character and all of his friends, and adults alike, without it sort of like falling into a really bad territory of being gross out humour stuff. Because it is rated U and it is specifically aimed at kids. But Aardman realised that during all of their films. If you watch all of their films, there's references for everybody that everybody will get. And that's the reason why it doesn't feel as weird going to see an Aardman U-rated film as it would be if you were going to see a kids' film rated U. It because of those references, and it plays to Aardman's strong point. I always love their stop motion claymation stuff because it looks fantastic, and it takes them a hell of a long time to do it. And it's stylized brilliantly in this film. There are some fantastic little nuances. I really enjoyed it, surprisingly. It lasts the 88 minutes perfectly. It doesn't feel over flabby. It doesn't feel over long. It doesn't feel like some elements of the film should be cut out, because it has got a coherent story that it works, that has a bad guy that's properly played throughout the film as well, built up. So instead of them just referencing the bad guy and then bringing him back in the last 10 minutes just to add turmoil, he's actually properly through the film. And so it has good humour to it, it has proper character, and surprisingly it's a very enjoyable film.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I'm going to go on to Jupiter Ascending, which is the latest one from Wachowski's. It is a big budget blockbuster sci-fi thing, which has been delayed for about 9 months from its original release date, which was meant to be last year. It stars Mila Kunis.
Mila Kunis.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, and she's basically playing a woman who was... we're introduced to her at the beginning. It's explained through voiceover, her telling us that she was born to parents who were from... I can't remember actually if it was Russia or Germany, but she was born
Russia.
from... I think it's Russia. She was born to parents who were from Russia. Her father's killed early on. We see that's not a spoiler. And she was born as a sort of an illegal immigrant while her mother was travelling between there and the US. So now grown up, she lives there with her family and her cousins and such, and sort of relatives she has there. She works basically as a sort of a maid going around with her mother and a cleaning company. Her day involves things like cleaning toilets. She is sort of going about her things, repeatedly saying, "Oh, I hate my life, can't do anything much about this." And then all of a sudden, she is at one point, Channing Tatum turns up. Only he's not quite Channing Tatum that we know. He is kind of a man who's been genetically engineered to be part man, part dog, or part wolf. He's part of a race of people who have been genetically engineered for particular roles. His to be a good soldier, and he's been sent to find her, and basically takes her and is basically explaining to her the fact of that she is now being sort of searched for and hunted for a particular reason. That it turns out she is now. This is the thing that sounds really weird, but she is the genetic reincarnation of a member of sort of the most successful, the most financially sort of successful royal family of the universe. Being that there are certain things in place, she can then go and inherit this royal status and all the financial wealth that come with it, except for the fact of that there is other members of the royal family that still exist and are still alive, including the head of the family, played by Eddie Redmayne. Here's a clip.
I know because of who and what you are, you're unable to say this. So I'll say it for you. You lied in the Commonwealth because you're a hunter who's been searching for one thing his whole life. You survived so long without it. The fact that you may have found it terrifies you, but not as much as the fact that she's down there, buried in several tons of hurricane. And if you want to see her again, and you take my advice, you get down there and you start digging.
That was actually not the clip I was meaning to play. That clip is actually featuring Sean Bean there. It was the only one you hear in the whole clip. He plays another one of these soldiers who has been also genetically engineered, but he's been genetically engineered and crossed people with a bee of some sort. And bees have been genetically engineered so they can recognise royalty.
It is ridiculous, isn't it?
It is ridiculous. It is, but I mean, you've seen it. I'm kind of spot on with that description, am I not?
Yeah, you are. Honestly, the Wachowskis just must have been on something really strange and weird if they came up with the idea of Channing Tatum's human character being crossed with a dog and Sean Bean being crossed with a bee.
And you have on this whole thing, though, the whole thing of that there is, I won't say why because it is kind of a plot spoiler, but there's this whole thing of that the Earth is something that the character played by Ed Redmayne owns. And has it there for a reason and something he's planning to do with it. But then, of course, that's sort of part of the wealth that Mila Kunis' character will then inherit, and so he will no longer be in charge of it. So, of course, he's not happy about this. He sends off people trying to kill her and stop her from getting the royal seal, and there's other people that are trying to manipulate her in ways. And there's Channing Tatum, who is then continuously rescuing her when she's falling, because she's forever falling and falling and falling. It shouldn't be called Jupiter Ascending. It should have been called Jupiter Falling.
The only thing is, during the entirety of the film, you don't see Channing Tatum try to mark his territory.
That would have been a good joke. Here's the thing with the film. It is a big science fiction blockbuster thing. It does have the moments in it where there are kind of Transformers moments, I'll say, but not bad Transformers moments, because there's a big action sequence early on in the film where there's this big chase going on throughout Chicago, and Chicago gets the butt end of the all the beatings and everything. So it's like from the last Transformers film before that, Chicago does not come off well. It's a film that it is ridiculous, it is crazy, but I have to admit, as much as I have issues with it, and it's got some really rough script writing and some even more rough...
Was that supposed to be a pun?
No, it wasn't meant to be a pun, but it is. But even worse dialogue at times. There's some dialogue in it that's cringeworthy, but the thing is, I've got to admit, I had fun with it. I have so many issues with it on a writing level, on a direction level, on an effects level, because it does have some really nice effects. There's some moments in it that are gloriously beautiful to look at. It's a visual feast. It's been released in IMAX, but I haven't seen it in IMAX, and I kind of want to see it again now and see it in IMAX just to really take it all in. But it's really a case of it's got terrible dialogue at times. The time I saw it, none of the audience laughed. It was quite a packed audience. There's jokes in it, but it's not funny. But the thing is, you kind of sitting there, it's like, oh, roll your eyes moment, not laugh moment. If it would be better if the dialogue was better, but the thing is, I've got to admit, for it being just over 2 hours long, I didn't get bored. I was expecting I was going to get bored. I thought, we're going to have Star Wars here, because it does reference the Star Wars. I heard also someone else say about it references kind of Flash Gordon at times, and it does. And it's got moments in it that you go, oh, that's from this film, but the thing that's really sad is that it feels like it's from someone other than Wachowskis. It feels below the Wachowskis, which is what's disappointing about it. Having seen the Wachowski stuff before and enjoying all their stuff before, especially the Matrix films, it's more like the second and third film. In fact, it's more like the second film than it is any of the others in the content and just what there is, because then it becomes focused on heavily on the action, heavily on the special effects, and less on the characters, which are paper thin and you don't really care about. But surprisingly, I had fun. I didn't dislike it. I thought the 3D was pointless, really. There was nice effects moments in it where the 3D was good, but didn't need it. It's easily a film. As someone who supports 3D, you can see this in 2D and it won't bother you. And I enjoyed it. I feel like I'm sticking up for it, but I'm not. I have so many issues with it, but I didn't hate it, and I think I don't dislike it as much as I like Transformers films.
Yeah, this is where we part ways, because I was bored out of my skull. It's visually nice to look at, and it pops and flows quite well. It's got some really lovely scenes to look at. It's just, honestly, everything about the rest of the film was excruciating. Just to top it off, Eddie Redmayne's character throughout the film, he speaks very silently, very quietly, and then all of a sudden, BAM! He just yells out as to say, I've got a bit of importance here. Look at me. It's just, his character is rotten. And all the dialogue is so cheesy that the whole screen just stunk of cheese. It was that bad. It's, considering how intelligent the Wachowskis pretend to be, if you watched all of their films, they baffle people so much so that it makes them think that they're watching a decent film, and they're distracting them from all of the things that are wrong with their movies. If you dig below the surface of this incoherent mess, you discover something so rotten that it cannot be saved no matter what they attempt to do. And when they've got a stupid storyline about somebody who was born in Russia, brought over to America, has to get up at around about 5 o'clock every morning to clean out people's toilets, give fashion advice to other people, and then finding out that she's royalty and the earth belongs to her by some kind of dog-human creature, and getting help by a human/bee-spliced creature, that's where the film is supposedly sane. Then you need to just question their sanity, to be honest.
I will say one of the things that I did laugh at unintentionally, definitely not unintentionally, is the fact that there's a bit where you see a pilot for a spaceship later on who's been obviously genetically engineered and cross-engineered with an elephant. And it was one of those moments that made me go, hang on, what? You really genetically engineered a person with an elephant? And giving him elephant features and a nose and everything. It's just like, Trump for a nose and things like that didn't help.
It's just even when you've got Sean Bean's character explaining that they were responsible for the death of the dinosaurs. It's really? You're explaining that the people who supposedly rule the universe and multiple universes were the ones who were responsible for the death of the universe and sort of control our lives, very much so like that South Park episode which involved these aliens who watch Earth as like Big Brother. It's just, honestly, it's...
Though, saying that now, Transformers 4, the story behind that doesn't seem quite so mad, does it?
No.
I will say this about the film, though. I'm going to say before we finish up on this, that I have sort of this year already, I picked out so far my favourite film, which was Whiplash. I have already picked out my favourite musical score, because I'm a person who listens to the film scores of films. My favourite score for the film is from this. It's Jupiter Ascending, because it's been released on iTunes as a 2 CD thing, which is you normally get like 1 CD, maybe an hour's worth of music, and that's it if you're lucky. There's like an hour and 40 odd minutes, a full 2 CDs, sort of, lengthy lot of music, and I love it. It's brilliant. It's a shame the film's not up to that kind of level, but it is my favourite film score of the year, my musical score of the year. So, I mean, there's that I got from it as well.
Listen to the film score and try to piece together the film. I bet you will not. Right, The Interview. It was the most controversial film of last year because of what the story is about. It's a very, very simple storyline. It centres around two characters, played by James Franco, who plays the stupidly inept Dave Skylark, who is a host of a talk show in America, a big, huge, massive talk show in America. It's produced by his friend, who's Aaron Rapport, who's played by Seth Rogen. And they've come up with a brilliant idea of going over to North Korea to interview Kim Jong-un to find out exactly what he's like, but then they're accosted by the FBI to try and assassinate him. And that was the whole plot of the film, and that caused uproar with Korea, and they supposedly retaliated with multiple things and hacks of Sony. The lead of Sony, when she was part of them, then she's now quit, and so it caused a lot of uproar. Here's a clip just to prove how inept Dave Skylark of a character he really is.
This is the biggest interview since Frosty Nixon.
Frosty Nixon?
I mean, in 10 years, Ron Howard's going to make a movie out of this. We do this, we can interview any president on the planet. And then you can ask him the real questions. This is like eating our vegetables. Once you eat those, then you get to eat the steak. And we know Aaron wants his steak. This is like the Lord of the Rings, okay? I'm actually like Frodo Baggins. You're my Sam. My Samwise. I can't do it without you.
Okay.
Come with me to Mordor.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the basic storyline of the film itself. It doesn't try to expand very much so on that. And as you can probably expect from a team that is Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen, writing partners, they've been together since the start of Seth Rogen's career. They've wrote practically everything that Seth Rogen has starred in. I think that This Is the End is probably their best collaboration because it was aware of what it was trying to do, even though it was pretty much too long. And so when you watch the interview, when you hear the stories that came out of the interview of how much panic it caused, how much stupidity it caused, to be honest, you think to yourself, is it going to be as controversial as you think it is? And then you watch it and get to the end of it and then you go, what the hell was all this hubbub about? Because it's just a parody. It's just not. If you look at, say, Team America World Police, that went much further than the interview goes, because the interview is just one moronic character, and one character was trying to sort of like stop him a little bit, bumbling their way through just stupid little set pieces, just showing how ridiculous they are. It's very much like the Marx Brothers, or stuff like was set in the 1920s and 30s that we've seen multiple times before. Look when Charlie Chaplin played Hitler. Was that deemed as overly controversial as what this was deemed at? And that was laughed at as well. And so it's just take it with a pinch of salt, because that's all it is. There's got a couple of moments in the movie where you'll smirk and you'll giggle a little bit, but it's just the same kind of thing that we've seen from these before. It's nothing overly controversial, I think, anyway, even though they make Kim Jong-un looking like he's obsessed with Katy Perry. But it just made my head scratch after I finished watching it, going, how can you find these two idiots controversial? And they're not.
I have to admit as well, I had the same feeling to you. It didn't feel like... It felt like it was getting more controversy than it deserved. But the whole thing of it... I have to admit, I laughed at some of it, but I didn't really laugh at the jokes. I laughed at the delivery of the jokes. Because Seth Rogen got most of the laughs from me I didn't find that really any of James Franco's got me laughing, but
his character was too annoying, wasn't he?
It was. It's just so brain dead, basically.
Yeah.
And it's really a thing when if you've got characters like this, you really want to kind of root for them. You don't want to go, hey, bad guy, kill him, win.
It's because
there's also some moments in it where it genuinely made me cringe. There's moments in it where later on, once they get to Korea, once they get there, there's moments in it where I genuinely was like, kind of, ugh, that's I really not, and it's not even toilet humor. It's just things that were kind of like, it's just things that were, it's them pushing the envelope of distasteful humor. But I mean, they're just, it's like they're just doing it for kicks now. It's not really doing it because I think it's funny.
Yeah, it's just a film that you look at and go, okay, fine, it's those two again doing exactly what they've done before. It's nothing different. If you like their films, you probably will find humour in this movie. If you don't like their films, it's not going to change your standpoint of view from them at all. They need to take a break from each other, to be honest, and Seth Rogen needs to go off and do something of his own kind, and Evan Goldberg needs to do exactly the same, because they're just becoming a partner which is writing exactly the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week's cinema section. Be interesting to see what we come up with as our movie of the week at the end of the show. But stick around now. We're going to take a quick ad break, and then we'll be back with this week's DVD and Blu Ray section.
From page to screen,
Moviecast. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Things don't always look exactly as we envision our life to look, but sometimes it works out and turns out even better.
Gregor Fisher, his bacon number is 2 because he was appeared with January Jones in Love Actually, and January Jones and Kevin Bacon appeared in X-Men First Class together.
I've got to say, the very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas now, that just makes me want to rush out.
It's about the acting, about the writing. That's really what theatre is for me.
Probably had more names than Prince or whatever. Never mind, there's a joke for the oldies. It'd be like, who's Prince? Who's he? I'd just like to see Mr. Freeze hiring his bad guys, going, right, okay, so you're a psycho, right, can you ice skate? Head over to iTunes, Spreaker and Stitcher and put in the search box From Page to Screen.
Welcome back to this week's Monday Movie Show. We're into the home release section of the show. Coming up, we're looking at a lot of films, including...
We have the adaptation of the novel The Maze Runner. We have the untold story of Dracula, Dracula Untold. We have a small little film that Stuart's been itching about to tell you about.
Very much
Enemy. An Enemy. We have a film that not really so much itching to tell you about, but I'm going to do it anyway, with Hugh Grant in the rewrites. We have a Simon Pegg movie with Hector and the Search for Happiness. We have a Daniel Radcliffe movie. It's a lot of British actors this week in What If. Then we have a couple other films to round out with Knights of Badassum and The Best of Me.
Yeah, and it's actually Badass Dumb. But yeah, I'll let you off with that. And surprisingly, this week I'm not ending the show with the review. I normally end it with sort of like the basement movie, but it's you who's doing that this week. So it'll be interesting to see what your take is on The Best of Me. See if it is really a basement movie. Yeah, on top of that, we have our TV movie of the week, but we'll kick things off as we normally do with the Blu-ray and DVD top 10. So number 10 is the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, which just won a whole load of BAFTAs, and deservedly so. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was funny. I thought it was witty, and great performance as well from Ralph Fiennes, and just a hell of a lot of fun, especially if you like Wes Anderson films.
At number 9 is The Wolf of Wall Street,
which I finally picked up the other day on Blu-ray for £6. Not bad. But I really like the film. I do agree it's a little bit long, but it literally is 3 hours long. But it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's got some moments in it that are genuinely gut-bustingly laugh-inducing, and I did not expect that when I saw it. And I've got to admit, it's a film that completely overwhelmed me in ways I wasn't ready for, and I thought it was great. And it's also the second film to get a great performance from what's his name?
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, from Jonah Hill after Moneyball.
Yeah, I can't see myself actually buying The Wolf of Wall Street, even though I respect it of what it is. I don't see myself being able to sit down and watch it again for the 3 hours that it's on. Yet something like Boyhood I can easily see myself picking that up on Blu-ray and DVD and watching through the 3 hours of that again. Or, for instance, the documentary based on Nightmare on Elm Street, Never Sleep Again, the 4-hour documentary. I can gladly sit down and watch that again. But I don't think I'll be able to do that with Wolf of Wall Street. For me, it's one of those movies where it's a one-watch movie just because you say you've watched it. It's exactly what I did with The Godfather. I'm not a fan of the Godfather trilogy. It's sacrilege that, but I'm not a fan of that trilogy. Yet I still sat down and watched each one of them, but I could only ever watch them once. And number 8 is a new one, If I Stay.
Yeah, this is a film that was... I didn't sit particularly well with it. It felt very much that it was kind of filled out to make a feature-length film when it really should have only been about 45 minutes. It just felt as if it has this film where one of these things where it goes back to flashbacks and again and again and again, and honestly I struggled to watch it to the end. I really did.
And number 7 is What We Did on Our Holiday.
Fun and brilliant. The first half of it is really kooky, and it really kind of has a sense of realism because of the fact that you got the kids there and the humour, and a lot of that comes from them not being given a script, them just being told, here you go, play along and do this. Then it has a weird thing that happens, and then the last half of the film it kind of goes a bit very out there. Some of the jokes kind of fall a bit flat after that, but I still enjoyed it. I just wished it had been more like the first half.
At number 6 is Lucy,
which is Luc Besson kind of hitting back to what he knows, doing it better, than he's done with a lot of things, but I think still struggling a lot, especially with the last half of this film, because you have the whole thing of a woman whose brain begins to unlock and giving her up to eventually 100% access to a full function of her brain, and it kind of, as it gets on, it doesn't know what to do with that option of being able to do anything. It doesn't really know how to deal with it.
Yeah, number 5 is, we'll skip through this, Charlotte's 3-minute belly blitz, and so at number 4 is A Walk Among the Tombstones.
This is one that you and I have different opinions on. You really dislike it. A lot of people disliked it, admittedly, but I did like the sort of grunginess. I like that it's this B-movie horror. It reminded me a lot of kind of the darkness of things like The Bone Collector, and it's admittedly a B-movie style. It's not a big A-movie thing. It didn't really need to have Liam Neeson in it. He's doing sort of the very similar thing he's done for the last few films he's been in now, but I thought it was nicely done, and it is a first-time big screen directing job. It's a bit rough around the edges, but there's talent there, and I liked it. I didn't hate it. I wasn't bored with it. I actually found it quite enjoyable.
And number 3 is The Box Trolls,
which is brilliant. Again, we're looking at stop motion animation in this one, as you did in the first half of the show with Shaun the Sheep. That was Aardman. This isn't Aardman. This is Ladka, who did Paranorman and
Coraline.
Coraline, yeah. And they're brilliant animations. They've got some great bits of humour in this. They're really good at doing the actual box trolls themselves, who are just funny, and each one of them is kind of like the minions from Despicable Me. You've got each of them has their own personality and stupid things they do, but it has a good story and some little quite sort of threatening scenes involving a character who doesn't handle cheese and dairy very well.
Yeah, like me. The Box Trolls is the perfect me story, because I definitely
trolls living under your house. Do you?
No, I have the lactose intolerant side of it, but I'm more like, instead of just exploding in gaseous form, I just explode in deathiest form. Number 2 is The Equalizer,
which I hated. I really thought it was horrible. Waste of the material, which is based on, very loosely, I would say, the TV series from the 90s with Edward Woodward, who is kind of like a guy who's ex-CIA or something like that, spook, who ends up going out to help people. This just becomes a film about a guy who turns into a serial killer, as far as I'm concerned. I hated it. I really thought it was really bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. The first 15 minutes showed promise, but it just evaporated the promise after the 16th minute.
A waste of material, a waste of director in Anton Fuqua, because he can do good action and he can do good films. This is not up to his level, and a waste of Denzel Washington.
And a complete waste of Chloe Grace Moretz as well, because her character was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And at number 1 is a new entry for Gone Girl,
which I expect to be at the top 10 next week as well. Top of the
really, considering the amount that's out.
I do. Because of the fact of that it's... You remember how long it was at the top of the UK box office when it came out in the cinema? People love this film, and right, so it's David Fincher, who's my favourite director. He's got this thing that he does in it that's really good, and he just keeps it so visually entertaining. You could watch it, you could watch him filming, a bell being rung, and you'd sit and watch it for an hour gladly because of the way he would film it. And Ben Affleck is brilliant in it, but it is Rosamund Pike who is even fantastically much more better than this, and honestly an amazing film. The only thing I do have a problem with, as I said before, is I think they should have done things slightly different from the book in the way the story is told, and I won't say any more than that because it will potentially give anything away. But if you haven't seen it, then you do need to see it. If you've read the book and haven't seen it, you won't be disappointed, because my other half, who's read the book, loves the film. And if you haven't read the book and you want to see it, read the book, see it, read the book. Either way, I think you'll be pleased. Right,
we've got loads of reviews to actually do, so let's crack on with them. The first one up is The Maze Runner. Now, in my swift haste of trying to get all my notes together, considering that my day-to-day has just been an absolute clusterfudge. It's just been a major mess.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, clusterfudge. This is PG version of it. But yeah, I wrote the director down as one full name. So on my sheet, he's known as Wesball.
That's better. That's actually a better name. It's like he's done his own version of McGee.
Yeah. It's just known as Wesball, but it is Wes Ball who is the director of the film. But it's sort of like very much in the guise of things like Divergent and The Hunger Games and films of that ilk. In this case, it centres around a huge, massive, giant maze, and in the centre of the maze is a colony of around about 50, 60 boys. And there's no females involved at all. And during the film, you find out that they've been there for 3 years. And every now and again, a new person is introduced into the fold of them. And in this case, a person who doesn't know his name is brought up on this giant elevator in the central area of it. And so, obviously, he's accosted by the people who live in there. They're wondering who he is. He finds out his name is Thomas. And he gets told some of the laws and rules that he needs to live by to survive, considering that these are the kind of rules that the people who were there have actually been adhering to for the past 3 years. Here's a clip.
My name is Albie. Can you tell me anything about yourself, who you are?
What is this place?
Let me show you. Hope you're not afraid of heights. Let's go. Come on. This is all we got.
What's out there?
We only have 3 rules. First, do your part. Second, never harm another glader. Most importantly, never go beyond those walls.
And so, obviously, he's going to ruffle up a few feathers inside of the group because they supposedly have got this tight-knit community, and he constantly questions them why they're not trying to find a way out of them. He tries to get in with the group of people who sort of like find a way around the maze, and he wants to find a way out of it rather than being stuck there. Add into the mix the first female as well, and that's when things start to explode, and that's when they need to find a way out of the central area of the maze. And the thing with the Maze Runner is it tries a few little different things that are different to the Divergence or the Hunger Games, because with the Hunger Games it's all about the politics. It turns out to be all about the politics and multiple different areas of the places where they live. With Divergent, it's about somebody who's sort of like going through a birthright and going into a different category where they think that they belong to. With this, it's very much like Lord of the Flies. a tight-knit community involving just boys, and then one girl who gets mixed into there to try and stir things up, trying to survive and finding a way out of it. So it's more like Lord of the Flies than the other movies that I mentioned, and in that case it works pretty well because there is tension between the characters. You sort of question them also when Thomas actually finds his name out, that you start to question them also. Why haven't you properly found a way out through the maze? Why are you only sending one or two people and not helping them when they're in trouble, getting caught up in what's actually inside the maze? And so you're eager to follow the story of them trying to get out of there. It has problems which a lot of these films do suffer from, but it's not as bad as any of the other copycat movies of this genre. So it sort of like falls nicely in between, and it makes you interested to find out where they're going to go, considering that the first film is called The Maze Runner. If you watch the film all the way to the end, you're thinking how they're going to tackle that with the sequel, and it might feel a bit different, and so it might drop The Maze Runner. Because if you look at the Divergent series, the next one's called Insurgent rather than Divergent 2. Or it doesn't have a subtitle, so that was an intelligent way of doing it, saying that...
have they not called it the Divergent series?
It's the Divergent series, but it's actually just going by the name of Insurgent rather than Divergent 2 Insurgents or something like that. And that's a smart way of doing it by saying, we've set up the Divergent side of it, the next part is the Insurgent side of it. So that's a smart way of doing it, and we'll see how they handle it with the sequel, with The Maze Runner. But it's an entertaining film for what it is.
I like it, and I want to say as well, I wasn't expecting it to be... I see generally a lot of films at the same cinema, and this goes back to Jupiter Ascending. I saw Jupiter Ascending, and I found it was quite good, but the sound, the picture and everything was good, but the sound was quite low. Maze Runner, the sound was loud, and I mean loud. I think it was actually the same screen I saw it in, and the mix was really good. There's moments where the sound is quite, actually, the surround especially is quite terrifying. It sounds to the side and behind and everything, and that's the atmosphere of the film, and it generates that kind of atmosphere. So it's a very upper end 12. I don't know actually if there is going to be if the Blu Ray is 15, has a 15 version.
I think they're just 12s.
Just a 12 one, yeah, because there was talk about them having, I don't know if they actually edited it down to get the rating, but they did this thing where they normally, they consult them and they say, oh, well, if you do this, it will get a 15. If you do this, it'll be okay. And so that's what they did before they actually submitted it to get a rating. But it's still very much edge of your seat, and just be aware, anyone who's getting it, for anyone under the age of 12, it might be sort of nightmare-inducing stuff in some of the scenes.
Yeah, it is rated 12 on its DVD release. Wasn't it cut quite a bit as well? There was a bit cut out from it.
I think it was cut by something like 6 seconds. I don't think it was a long thing, but I think it was cut by 6 seconds of a scene of somebody in pain or something, I think. But yeah, it's very upper end.
Yeah, all I was just going to say was, while you're going with your next film, I'm going to have a little look, because I really like the way the BBFC actually plan stuff out. So if people are interested to see where films were cut or not, or how much it was cut, go to the BBFC's website and discover there.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, I'll go through Dracula Untold then, which is the retelling of the events. This being a origin story of how the character of Vlad the Impaler, played by Luke Evans, will ultimately become Dracula. It is basically a film with him starting out as human. He's living with his wife, and his wife played by Sarah Galen, and his son. There is the sort of the Lord of the Land, Mehmed, played by Dominic Cooper, who makes a demand of him and everyone else that sort of the first sons of the families will be turned over to him so he can train them to be his army, and they will be his army. Vlad, not particularly happy with his idea, ends up turning against him, tells him, this won't happen in the confrontation, and kills some of his men. Eventually deciding that what he needs to do is go and contact this creature that lives in the mountain that he's encountered, played by Charles Dance, who plays sort of the master vampire of the film, who agrees to turn him, giving him this power, but under the conditions that there are of it, that he must not drink blood. He must survive the thirst that he will endure for the 2 days in order to still have the power, but then become normal again afterwards and not become a vampire like him. He obviously accepts this and then goes back to his wife, who discovers this secret. Here's the clip.
What's happening to you? No, stop it! May God strike down whoever did this to you.
I chose this.
This is the strength you sought? But why?
Because I send corpses back to Mehmet. Instead of our son.
You did this for us.
In 2 days, I'll be restored. I just have to resist.
Resist what? Resist what, Vlad? Tell me.
A thirst. For blood.
So here's the thing with it, Dracula Untold. It is a modern CGI fest, as you would expect for things. It kind of does reference things if you saw the Mummy remakes that there were in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, and it's fun. It's okay. It's not brilliant, but it's enjoyable. It has its moments. Again, like many things now, it has moments that are kind of they don't work for the film. But I thought it was competently done. It was a good start. It was entertaining. It's not an overly long film because it's only 92 minutes long, so it doesn't stick around any longer than it needs to, and it's okay and entertaining. It sets up. There is an ending which, without spoiling it, is sort of a setup for future films, but also because of the fact supposedly there will be kind of like a Monsters Avengers sort of thing that they're going to do with Dracula and the Mummy and Wolfman and the Invisible Man, all these kind of things. They're all going to be sort of brought together. And I mean, saying that, I mean, you can imagine this. If you imagine this being kind of on par with the first Iron Man film, it's not quite as good as the first Iron Man film, but there is that moment there. You watch it and go, you know what, that was okay. That's fine. I'll look forward to seeing what they do next. And I think that it has something. It's not brilliant, but it's good, and it's not terrible. It's a good medium.
It's just a slight correction there, because this is not part of the Universal's reboot of the Monster series.
Well,
which
it's been said it has, and it hasn't. I think they're playing coy with it.
I originally thought it was, but then the Universal has confirmed that it's not. Frankenstein, which is out later this year, that's the start of the Universal Monsters, and that's the one with Daniel Radcliffe in it. And it's been getting some interest growing behind it, so I'm quite eager to see that. I'm glad it didn't go down the route that I was expecting it to go down when I went to see the film. I thought it was going to go very much like The Mummy, where you see Arlen Vosloo's character, just his face created in waves, and there is a scene in the film where it got very, very close to doing that. But it's stupid. It's known as it's stupidly cheesy, and it's really, really cheesy. It's not bad, but it's tolerable. It's very tolerable, and that's the best I can see about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that it doesn't. It's kind of a safe movie because it doesn't do anything to try and risk it and to annoy anyone. That's the thing. So but it's an okay safe movie.
Yeah. Right. Next up, Enemy. This is the film that I've been eager to actually talk about, but it's one of those films where you're sort of really eager to talk about, but you shouldn't, considering that you might spoil something. Very much like Gone Girl. So I'm going to try my best to reel back the spoilers, but it's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who did Prisoners. The very, very good Prisoners. And it stars Jake Gyllenhaal, who is also in Prisoners. And he plays two characters in the form of Adam and Anthony, both like very chalk and cheese people. Now, Adam is he's a professor at a university in Toronto, a very downbeat character. He has a girlfriend, but he lives in a very sort of like dawdy kind of flat. He follows a routine day in, day out. And one night he decides to rent a movie with his girlfriend to watch it. Yet on discovering the film, he sees an actor which looks very similar to him, which looks exactly like him. So he investigates this, and he discovers this actor is called Anthony, and he is exactly the same as him. And through the film, he becomes very obsessed with him to the point where it gets insane. And that's what the film is about. If you saw somebody who's very similar to you, what would you do? And There's no clip for it because there is only one clip, but it's on for about 4.5 minutes, and I don't think anybody would be interested to listen to a 4.5 minute clip. But the movie itself is really, really creepy. It's extremely creepy, and it's again Jake Gyllenhaal proving how brilliant of an actor he is. Because if you look at him in Nightcrawler, he's sadistically creepy in Nightcrawler. In this, he has to play two different characters, to both completely opposite from each other. One who's got a really nice lavish lifestyle, who's out a lot of times, who's got lots of women, things like that. And another one who's a professor at a university, is very low beat and who just keeps himself to himself and follows the same routine. And it's very hard for an actor to be able to do that with two characters in one film, being able to play completely different ends of the spectrum. And Gyllenhaal handles it brilliantly. Villeneuve shoots the film and directs the film with such ease and such nuance. If you look at the way Prisoners is actually shot, it's got a dirty, grimy look to it, which helps the film, considering the subject of what Prisoners is. With Enemy, it helps also, and trust me, if you manage to guess the last scene of the film, not the last little bit, the last scene of the film, I will give you all the money that I have. Because honestly, it hits you out of nowhere, absolute nowhere. All I'll just say is just think of the way the film is actually building up and what the film's sort of like undercurrent storyline is about. And you might be able to guess it from that point. But honestly, it is the most surprising and one of the most shocking end scenes I've seen in a film, full stop. Not just this year or in the last couple of years, just absolutely just jaw-dropping, and it makes you question everything to do with the film after seeing the last scene. It is that impressive. I really, really liked Enemy.
I really want to see this as well, because I mean there was the Double with a similar sort of premise with Jesse Eisenberg last year, and then this was coming out and it didn't really get a big release in the cinema. It got a very limited release, which meant we didn't get a chance to see it, so I really want to see it, and I do like Jake Gyllenhaal as well. He's a fantastic actor.
Yeah,
so
considering also to support him, you've got Melanie Laurent and Isabella Rossellini. What a duo to actually have supporting you in a film when it comes to actresses. Two fantastic actresses, and Isabella Rossellini plays the mother of Adam, and Melanie Laurent plays Mary, who's the one who's going out with Adam. So there are so many twists and lots of bubbling under darkness through the film that starts to percolate throughout the movie that I highly recommend Enemy.
Okay, I will definitely have a look at that at some point then. Let's go on to The Rewrite, which is directed by Mark Lawrence, who also wrote it. It stars Hugh Grant as a man who is some years earlier has won an Oscar for writing a film. He's then kind of into a writer slump, struggling to do things. He ends up financially in strife, so he ends up having to take a job teaching screenwriting at a college in America, halfway across the country from where he lives. He does this begrudgingly, sort of in the fact that he's desperate for money, so he has to do it. Takes the job, gets there, finds that it's in kind of a horrible town where there's never any sun. It's always raining, and it's a horrible place to live. Ends up unintentionally meeting and sleeping with one of the students that will be in his class, and then ends up going from bad to worse thereon, as you can imagine, in full-on true Hugh Grant style. Let's play a clip.
Oh, Lord.
Hi, Mr. Michaels and Karen.
Hello, Holly. Wow, so you work here?
No, I just walk around with a pad and I find out what people like to eat.
I'd like the ahi tuna.
Okay. Excellent choice.
Great. And a glass of Chardonnay?
Okay, just need to see an ID.
Seriously?
Oh, that's just restaurant policy. Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't look real.
Yes, it is.
I can take it to the manager.
I tell you what, why don't I order a Chardonnay and we can share it?
Okay, are we going to get straws? Am I 3 years old?
Well, we don't really know because your ID is fake. Sorry.
I'm going to change my order. It's fine. I'll have a beef enchilada and a margarita at Cafe Mexico with Judy and Chloe.
Karen. Karen. Don't make a big thing about this.
She's being totally rude, and it'd be nice if you stood up for me. Either you take me seriously or you don't.
No, I do. I just think it's probably her job to ask that question. And
Good night.
you should... Daughters.
So, here's the thing with the rewrite. It really is in need of a rewrite. It's not a great film. It doesn't bring anything new to the genre, especially being Hugh Grant is just doing the same role he's done in most of his films for his career. There's moments in it particularly where there's a film that I like with Danny DeVito, which a lot of people either have never heard of or are not massive fans of, but I like it, and it's called Renaissance Man. It also has Mark Wahlberg in one of his earlier roles that he did before he sort of started becoming a big actor. And the thing is, it's basically the same. It's a guy who doesn't want to take a job, ends up taking a job. In that film, he's trying to teach sort of a bunch of sort of the failing soldiers in the army that are going to wash out how to sort of comprehend and how to be sort of smarter and make decisions better. And he does this through Shakespeare because he's an English graduate. And this is kind of a similar thing. He's there, he doesn't want to be there, he ends up doing anything. And do you imagine he's going to, by the end of the film, perhaps decide that he likes teaching and he wants to do this and it might be a good thing? And yeah, okay. Am I spoiling things? Kind of, but is it really a spoiler if it's something you knew was going to happen anyway? No, because that's the kind of thing you can expect with a Hugh Grant film, as you can with the rewrite.
Sorry, I'm just aghast by a little bit of news that I'm reading at the moment. It's very speculative news, but supposedly Angelina Jolie has been offered $20 million to direct Captain Marvel.
Huh. Okay. I'd heard rumours that they were maybe looking at her for something, but that's okay.
I know this was to do with the rewrite. I have no intention to watch it at all, and you made a little slip up as you were saying during when the clip was playing that you were going to say Hugh Jackman.
I almost said Hugh Jackman. Yeah, I was trying to. I was like Hugh. Oh yeah, I had to look and check.
I think that would have probably made it a much more interesting film if it was Hugh Jackman by the sounds of things.
The thing is that I would have gladly sat through this and had it be Hugh Jackman doing his Australian accent, his native accent, and playing the role. And the thing is, it would have been immensely more funny. The thing is, it's not even badly. There's moments in it which there are moments there are jokes and there are attempts at jokes, and you kind of go, yeah, okay, that was a joke. I'll give you that. But it just wasn't funny because it was Hugh Grant doing it, and it was just it was the same kind of thing. You know, when he does it again and again and again, it's just no longer funny.
Just sticking with the Hugh Jackman thing for a moment, do you think he's going to be slightly distracting and chappy considering that he's going up against a South African kind of cast?
I don't know, because in the trailer,
it's hard to tell.
In the trailer, it's hard to tell whether or not he's actually doing his Australian accent.
He is actually
a South African one. It sounds like he's trying to do both.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong Australian accent, and it's sort of like slightly off-putting. I adore that trailer. That trailer is how you do trailers. But I can't wait for Chappie, but it might be slightly off-putting. Major tangent there, but whatever. Next up, Hector in the Search for Happiness. I'm getting all the simple to describe films of the week, because I think Hector in the Search of Happiness...
You should have had the rewrite.
Yeah. Hector in the Search for Happiness is directed by Peter Chelsom, and it stars Simon Pegg, who plays Hector, and Rosamund Pike, who plays his girlfriend Clara. And it's just it centres around the character of Hector. He's a psychiatrist, but he's lost the sort of like he's weird a little bit. He's just sitting through his job, listening to people yabber on, but just not taking much attention at all. So he comes up. Actually, here's a clip which tells you the idea that he's come up with.
Sleeves, removable.
Obviously.
Trousers, convertible.
Obviously.
Hat, reversible.
Obviously.
And in case of emergencies.
Oh, God forbid. Passport, Imodium, antihistamine, nose strips. Remember, avoid dairy.
Yes.
Got enough socks?
Yes, I think so. I don't want to overpack it, and, it all fits.
Neat and tidy. Like us.
So his idea is he's going to set off across the globe to try and find the true meaning of happiness. And in his journey, he stops off at multiple countries across the world, including China, where he meets the character who's played by Jean Reno on the plane, who's a rich guy who sort of like buys his way through happiness, and he experiences his lavish lifestyle in that front. And then he goes to Tibet with Tibetan monks, and ultimately it ends off in America, where he meets up with an old flame of his and he gets put through a sort of like a program where he discovers the full meaning of happiness. And the problem with Hector and the Search for Happiness is it's boring, for one. It's not very funny at all, even though they try to interject humour. But it's such a self-referential film. It's such a movie that pats itself on the back all the way through the film about one guy who's a psychiatrist who decides to ultimately spend thousands and thousands of pounds to trek across the globe just to discover why people are happy. I wish I could get paid for doing that. Because it's a ridiculous premise in a ridiculous movie where it manipulates you throughout the film. There is a scene on a plane which involves a very sick woman. And that's probably, in my opinion, the best scene out of the film. But even that's highly manipulative. There's a part where he gets kidnapped in Africa and he gets put into jail, and you're meant to feel sorry for him, but I couldn't care less, to be honest. I was just thinking, fine. You're sort of like doing a movie version of the TV program Wish You Were Here. That's what it reminded me of.
He's playing also a very similar character. I can't remember the film, but playing a very similar character to the one that was him as a guy that not many people liked, and it was the one with Kirsten Dunst. I can't think what it was, but it's a very kind of similar character that some people will find it, like yourself, very hard to like him.
Yeah, I think I've got the movie in the back of my head somewhere, but I can't think of what the name is.
I don't know what it is now. Okay, I'll go on to What If, which is the sort of the comedy drama directed by Michael Dowles. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as Wallace, who is a guy living in New York somewhere. He is there, and sort of after having had a string of on-off bad relationships go sort of, the bad end, he is sort of hanging around with his friends. He's out at a party. He gets sort of dragged out by, amongst all others, his friend Alan, played by Adam Driver. While he's at this party, he meets this girl Chantry, played by Zoe Kazan. Sort of hits it off. The two of them have this weird sort of good chemistry. Things seem to be going okay and great, and he walks her home. But it turns out, ultimately, she's already got a boyfriend. She just sort of sees him as a friend. And that's where he finds himself in the friend zone and sort of deciding whether or not he wants to try and have more with this. Here's a clip.
There is a fourth option. Yeah. Be honest. Tell her how you feel. Might ruin the friendship, but at least you stood up like a man and expressed your feelings.
Wait, I'm sorry. Since when does being a man involve expressing your feelings? I mean, did I miss a memo? Because if I recall, being a man meant hiding your feelings forever. Like Bruce Willis. You never see Bruce Willis expressing his feelings. Most you ever get out of Bruce is a hint of melancholy at the edge of a smirk.
Do you think Bruce Willis would be happy just being friends? 100% honesty is the foundation of any relationship.
Whoa, you are 100% honest with Nicole?
Yes.
About everything?
Yep.
What, New Orleans 2006? What was her name? Fabia? Yeah, she did look like a woman, to be fair.
99% honesty is the foundation of any relationship.
No, it's not worth the risk.
So here's the thing with What If. That kind of sets up what if it's this, what if it's that. It doesn't really know what to. It wants to be a comedy, it wants to be a drama, it wants to have the two things. And again, it's one of these films that tries to do two things and doesn't know what to do and ends up doing neither. It's not especially funny, even though it tries to interject humour in it, and it has character in it that you don't really care about for it to be a good drama. And there's moments in it where there's the relationship between Wallace and Chantry, and you can see there's sort of a connection being made there. And it's kind of annoying because of the fact the characters kind of, they're this will they, won't they, will they, won't they, or they will, or they won't, or they will. And at the end of it, you basically go, just hurry up and do one or the other. Just get somewhere. Don't just dilly-dally around in the middle. And it's one of those films that will drive you nuts by the end of it.
Pass. Again, I can't be, to be honest, the amount of films that we do get to watch week in, week out, I just can't, I don't have the time to watch a movie that's going to drive me nuts. So
I last film.
Yeah, I have no intention to see it because I don't have a reason to see it. To be honest, I'm not reviewing it for the show, so I escaped a bullet there, didn't I? By the sound of things.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see it in the cinema, so.
Ooh. My final film of the night is Knights of Badastum. This is a movie that was shelved and kept on the shelf for quite a while. And I watched a film starring one of the actors in this movie, Ryan Quanten. He was in a film called 7500, which was Hideo Nakata's first English film. Because this is the director who did The Ring. And so he did a film called 7500, which is still yet to be released over here. But in this one, with Ryan Quanten, he's in a film directed by Joe Lynch, and it centres around a group of LARPers. Now, if you don't know what a LARPer is a person who takes part in live-action role-playing games. It's the people who dress up and play Dungeons and Dragons. And so Ryan Quanten's character is sort of like he's a bit peeved off with his relationship. His girlfriend has sort of like left him or having an affair, and he's really annoyed at where it is. Yet his friends decide to think that it's a good idea to cheer him up, to take him on to a LARPing event. Here's a clip.
Hey dude, where's my +3 mace?
Am I their weapons keeper? Hey, man.
Found it! Oh, hey, dude! You bent my mace. That's not cool. Sorry, man. My mom made me this mace.
It's still fierce.
And so in that clip there, you heard his friends, who's played by Steve Zahn and Peter Dinklage. Also thrown into it is a female character who's played by the gorgeous Summer Glau. You just imagine if there was a film starring Mila Kunis.
What is it with you and women to do with that TV actresses?
I know, but you can just imagine if there was a film starring Mila Kunis and Summer Glau.
Get your head out of the gutter.
Sorry, but it all the rest of the film all involves this demon that gets summoned when one of the guy who's played by Steve Zahn, he plays the wizard of the group, the very much of the Dungeons and Dragons group, and he supposedly incants this incantation from this book, which rises this succubus who ends up going on a killing spree, and they have to try and stop her. And it's a very fun film. It's over the top. It's got some decent humour to it. It's got decent gore to it, but it's what you expect. It is an adult version of the kids' program Dungeons and Dragons. That's what it is. There are 4 Dungeons and Dragons films. The first one was barely watchable. After that, it just become questionable as why the hell is this still getting made? This is sort of like what Dungeons and Dragons should have been. Its ultimate conclusion. It is Knights of Badastum. It's fun. Joe Lynch did direct a film called Detention, and prior to that, he did the film Talk. Now, Talk was awful. Detention is silly. When you've got a time-traveling bear in the film Detention, it's sort of like takes the mickey out of like the high school horror movies where there's a killer going around, but to ultimately stop the killer in detention, they have to actually use a time-traveling bear to go back in time to stop it. It's a head scratcher. Joe Lynch likes to do these slightly strange, offbeat kind of movies. After Talk just did absolutely nothing, and this suits him. It didn't get very much attention, which is slightly annoying because it is funny at times and there's got some nice guy. It reminded me of watching like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's not as good as Tucker and Dale, but it's still very watchable because it's got Summer Glau in it. You reviewed the last movie and I'll think of Summer Glau.
Okay. Yeah. No, don't do that because I'll be distracted. Oh no. Okay, this is a family thing. This is a family sort of level. Don't be disgusting.
Summer Glau. Sorry.
I'm going to mute you. No, go to the last film, which is The Best of Me. which is directed by Michael Hoffman. It stars James Marsden and Michelle Monaghan as Dawson and Amanda. As at the start of the film, we're introduced to Dawson, who's working on an oil rig. There's a fire breaks out, an explosion which causes him to be thrown overboard. And when he's thrown overboard in the water, he is sort of has this vision of Amanda. The thing is, the two of them haven't seen each other for years. They both eventually then are brought together by the fact of that they're called that a person they knew has passed away and sort of left them notes and things in their will. They turn up at this house, and then it cuts to sort of flashbacks in the past of the two of them when they were younger, when they met, had a sort of an ongoing romance, and leading up to the things eventually that led to them sort of having a rough sort of patch in their relationship. It's a film which kind of has an oddness to it, of the fact that you've got these sequences of the roughness happening in the past, but then also the present with them meeting up again, including when they're sitting there at the place they've been sort of clearing out this person's house, and they've decided they've ultimately been there long enough for the day, they end up cooking and sitting having dinner. Here's a clip.
What? Why are you laughing?
I don't know. I guess I miss this. I miss you getting all mad at me.
I'm not mad.
Being a little pushy.
I'm not pushy.
You just care so much, Amanda. You just can't help yourself.
I should go.
What?
This is dangerous. We've had wine, and somehow you have gotten better looking, which is so annoying. Couldn't you have gotten bald or fat or something? Jeez.
So this is based on a Nicholas Sparks novel. So as you can imagine, there are going to be some weirdness things to it, to that level. I won't go into what they are, and I won't say anything more on the story in that, because there are things in it. And I will admit, I didn't see the ending bits of it coming, and the twists and weird things like there are to it. But it is so very kind of done this before. It's very kind of pushes the limit of what's believable. I think at times it really does have moments where you just kind of sit there and it's like you're just not interested, not caring. The really thing that I have a problem with is that the young versions of the two characters are played by actors that, well, the female character looks kind of like him. It's Liana Liberato that plays the younger version of Amanda. The younger version of Dawson is played by Luke Bracey, and I just don't see him being the same character. I have this problem of that if you're going to cast someone as the young version of someone and the old version of someone, have them look really similar, or have some, you've got to make the attempt to have them be similar. I looked into the details of the film. Apparently Paul Walker was cast before his death, and then obviously had to be replaced by James Marsden after his death, so that may have had something to do with it. But I still think, even looking at Paul Walker and looking at this younger actor, Luke Bracey, that also the age difference doesn't ring, because it's supposed to have been something like 20 years between them, and I just found it, honestly, it was like going all the way through it. When it cut to the past, I'm like, really? That's the younger version of him? And it just broke any chance of me being able to follow it as the same character. So if you can't get past that, that's a problem. And for me, that's a problem. I couldn't get past it. I didn't think there was anything special about the film. It was too long. It's 2 hours long. It didn't need to be that long. Easily could have been half an hour shorter. And I just found it, especially being the little Nicholas Sparks weirdness things that get added into his films and his stories, I just was kind of, yeah, okay, that's the thing where if it was someone else on it and they did it in a different way, I would be completely on board with it. His, not so much.
Right, that's it for the releases this week. TV Movie of the Week.
Well, we kind of almost picked the same one. You had another one as well, but I picked Byzantium, which is I call it the alternative vampire film. You call it the not vampire film.
I'll let you off with the alternative vampire film, so...
Okay, yeah. But it's a great drama, and it's very graphic without being gory. Would you say?
Yeah, it has got a few little interesting uses of gore.
Yeah, but it doesn't sort of linger on them unnecessarily. It's on Wednesday the 11th at 9:00 on Film 4.
Yeah, it's directed by Neil Jordan. I really like Neil Jordan, and it's a brave film to have the leads both played by females. In this case, Saoirse Ronan and Gemma Arterton.
And Gemma Arterton on fantastic top form. She's brilliant in the film.
She is. She's fantastic in the film. But it's because it is National Female Horror Month this month, the month of February. And so it's nice for Film 4 to actually show something like Byzantium. And I take part in Stuart's From Page 2 Scream show. And at the end of the month, we are going to discuss females in horror. And it's a small amount apart from the typical Scream Queens. And so it was an interesting thing for Neil Jordan to take the two main characters and make them the lead roles as females. Also, what's interesting is it's a new thing. It's not something that's based on a book or based on a graphic novel or whatever. It's something that he created himself. And again, that's a rare thing to see now, because we always seem to see sequels and
original
things.
Stories.
Yeah, it's nice to see an original story, and Byzantium is definitely one of the best ones. My other TV movie of the week, because I had Byzantium down as well, which I'll be watching because I haven't seen it for a little while, is Shame. Because I think Shame is part of Film 4's sex season. They've got multiple films getting shown as part of that season. One of the other standouts is Secretary. If you're interested to go and see 50 Shades of Grey, just avoid that and watch Secretary. It's on very early in the morning, I think.
Secretary.
I say Secretary.
You said Secretary. Yeah, she's made up of. She's a pair of shears that cut roses.
That's a secretary.
Yeah, that's what
I said. I know, but I say a secretary. It's because where I'm from. But a secretary is the thing that you actually use the shears from. A secretary is somebody who works for, in the case of the film, somebody who's very perverse. But Shame. It's directed by Steve McQueen, who went on to direct 12 Years a Slave. And it stars the brilliant Michael Fassbender in it. You see, probably too much of Michael Fassbender. You actually see he's Fassbender. And it's got, again, you also see a lot of Carey Mulligan as well. But it's about somebody who's addicted to sex, and I found the film extremely interesting. It's a really interesting film, brilliantly directed by Steve McQueen, but also brilliantly acted by Michael Fassbender and Carey Mulligan. So both of them. Film 4 is on top form again over the next week, and they're the two best films that they're showing.
They are very good films, yeah.
Yeah, because we just avoid other channels, to be honest. I think Film 4 should just sponsor us.
Well, I just think the other films, the other channels, honestly, you have to search and scrub to find a film, and then you go, "Oh, I've seen that. It's not very good." And it's very rare. It's annoying when you're going through and you go, "Oh, there's that one. I should have said that," but you never know because it was like ITV3 at 11 o'clock in the night, So
yeah, Film 4 should just sponsor us. If anybody from Film 4 is listening, please sponsor us. It'd be nice. But that's it for this week's show. Make sure you check out our website, mondaymovieshow.co.uk, and get in contact with us on Twitter, at Monday Movie Show. I'm at Cryptic Tadpole, Andrews at HDVD, facebook.com/Monday Movie Show, and email mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. You can also leave us feedback on the Spreaker page, and also with the show now being on iTunes, you can leave feedback on there as well as I don't think you can on Podkicker, but you might be able to. But you can find us in multiple different sources and YouTube as well. Make sure you check out a few of our affiliated websites, from page2screen.com, which is Stuart's website, followingthenerd.com, which is done by Mark, and also the Sound Foundation, which is the charity that we support, soundfoundation.org.uk. Movie of the week.
I can't decide. I really can't decide. I mean, like, I want to say Selma for the acting, but the film is not being. I mean, I just had fun with Jupiter's Ending, and it's a big thing. I mean, see, as much as you should see Selma because it's a great film. It's a great thing about Martin Luther King and the performance. Jupiter's Ending is you need to see it on a big screen because then you get fun out of it. And
this is probably the only place where you're ever going to hear Jupiter Ascending being recommended as film of the week.
But I don't want to say Jupiter Ascending in film of the week because it's not a fantastic film. It's got so many problems. So I'm like, I'm Shaun the Sheep.
You haven't seen it? You can't recommend something you haven't seen.
Yeah, but you've seen it and you gave it such a great stellar review.
My movie of the week is Enemy. So that's what I'm like to put out here. So we'll go with Shaun the Sheep as the cinema one, but Enemy as the DVD of the week. So
DVD. I'm going to say Maze Runner.
Enemy, but Enemy / Shaun the Sheep. That's it for this week's show. We'll be back next week, either on Sunday or Monday. Make sure you check out the website. You'll find full details of when we'll be back. And we're drawing straws at who's going to review the supposed big release of the week. And we are going to play you out with the clip from the said film known as 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, it's actually a clean clip as well.
Yeah, where the rest of the film has got a majorly bad STD. But until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
I thought it was you.
What the?
What a pleasant surprise, Miss Steele.
Just Anna. Just Anna. You're in here.
I was in the area in business. Needed to pick up a few things. Are you free?
Yeah. What can I help you with?
Do you stock cable ties?
Cable ties, yes, we do. I can show you if you want.
Please lead the way, Miss Steele.
Just Anna. Is that it?
Masking tape.
Are you redecorating?
No.
We have 2-inch and 1-inch. But the truly self-respecting handyman will have both in his toolbox.
Of course you will.
It's rare to find a connoisseur these days. Do you want anything else?
Yes. Rope. That's impressive. You Girl Scout.
No, organized group activities aren't really my thing.
So what is your thing?
I don't know, books. Okay, rope, tape, cable ties. You're the complete serial killer.
Not today.